Hi friend, thank you for watching. Welcome to another art-inspired Shop My Stash video. My name is Mia and in today's video we are going to do a Shop My Stash inspired by the vibes, the colors, the mood of a painting, and we're also going to do a look inspired by it. Today's painting is called Vanity and it was painted by August Tulmush. We're also going to talk about a bit about vanity as a subject in painting and female vanity and how it's been perceived over the years. Before we begin, I want to say that this video is a collaboration with my friend here on YouTube, Elle. I feel that Elle doesn't even need an introduction, at least to me. She's one of the OGs, one of the first beauty YouTubers that I actually started watching and that introduced me to another world other than, you know, the standard first impressions, reviews, buy type of mentality that big beauty gurus at the time had. She introduced me to the panning community through her videos, and I feel that she was very inspirational for this whole subset of YouTubers that are more mindful with their consumptions, that try to do panning projects. She also does beautiful, fairy, fantasy-like looks, very colorful, very beautiful, very bold. So if you're into that and mindful consumption, I would suggest giving her a follow if you haven't done so already. Without further ado, let me tell you a bit about all of the things that I picked, and then we'll skip to the intro and creating the look. Let's talk base. I'm going to use my Makeup Forever Water Blend, which is a very no makeup type of foundation. You can't see it right now because it's been jumbled about, but I don't have a lot of this left, so I'm trying to actively pan it. For concealing the dark under eye circles that make me look like an underslept raccoon, I'm going to use two products. One is the Becca Under Eye Brightening Corrector in light medium, and then the Makeup Revolution C3 concealer from their Conceal and Define line, which is very covering, but it's not the most hydrating of concealers. As primers, I'm going to use again two things that I'm trying to pan. This is the Gerovital Luxury Wrinkle Reducing Cream SPF 15, and this is a little sample. And I also have a little sample of the MAC Strobe Cream, and this is in Pink Light, I think. Yes. For powder, I'm going to use the Sephora Beauty Amplifier, and this is the translucent variant. One of my favorite powders, actually, because it is so smooth and it visibly blurs everything. I'm also going to use my trusty Alverde concealer, and this is a green color corrector for, you know, the bits and spots that the foundation won't cover. For mascara, I'm going to use my one and only mascara currently in my stash, and this is the L'Oreal Excess Volume Million Lashes, which the older it's gotten, the better it got. When I first got it, first month and a half, I felt it was too liquidy and it tended to clump a lot. But now that it's dried out and it's towards, you know, the end of its lifespan, it's much better. Let's start fun stuff. The colors in this painting are a sort of bluish, purple, blurple type of color for the walls, and of course her pink dress. So I'm going to do a look that features both of those colors, and I'm going to start with the Nabla Soul Blooming palette, which has most of the tones that I need, and I think I'm going to focus on Flowery and Anemone. Anemone looks very marine blue in the pan, but actually when swatched it does have a slight purple tint. To add a bit more blue to the situation, I'm going to use the Pat McGrath Mini Eye Ecstasy palette, and this is in Subversive, and I'm going to add a bit of the blue shade over here, but I'm not gonna do anything with the rest. For blush, I'm going to use the Kiko Waterflower blush, and this is in Pink Shiver. This was a limited edition, but they do bring back colors with all of their new collections, just different packaging. I'm going to use this as a matte in the crease as well as my main blush shade. For highlighter, I'm going to go with the Kaleidos Star Surfer highlighter, which is one of my more pinkish, glittery highlighters. Without further ado, let's start working on the look for this painting and nerding out about art some more. Here I am, barefaced and pale enough to be used as a road sign in the middle of the night. You know, I'm that reflective. Let's start with putting on the base, and we're going to talk about the two talk points that I wanted to hit in this video, and that is vanity in art. That is the motif of Vanitas that's used in classical artwork and today still, as well as vanity as an act, and how the act of vanity seems to be perceived by society, and how it's also been weaponized by women and against women across the years. I don't know why the latest topics of these types of videos have been a bit feminist leaning. I don't think it's intentional, but like I am a kind of a SJW, so it leaks in my videos. I'm going to start by applying a generous amount of the Gerovital moisturizer, because unfortunately my skin is as dry as an Egyptian mummy and it needs all of the help it can get. I'm following that with the MAC Pink Light on my cheekbones for some extra added shine. I want to be able to be seen from the moon if needed, followed by applying the foundation directly from pump on my face, because I am a savage and I cannot be contained. I have no rules and no respect for proper makeup application. It is what it is. I'll be following that with a light layer of concealer, color corrector, and powder. So let's talk a bit about the Vanitas motif. Vanitas is a Latin word and it means emptiness, futility, worthlessness, and in that sense it relates a bit to Christian values, whereas the pursuit of the physical, the material, the aesthetic is seen as a worthless pursuit, because from dust we come and to dust we return, basically. And chasing those pursuits in particular from a Christian perspective in the Middle Ages, it was seen as worthless, because one should rather focus towards the inward and into the spiritual. That's why you see Vanitas as a big topic in Western art, and particularly in Christian heavy regions, because art and religion has been intrinsically linked for many years, and values from the current dominant religion make way into the art that's commissioned. So Vanitas in artwork is basically a symbol, an allegory for everything will pass, everything is transient, everything is transitory, it's ephemeral, it's temporary, and we as mortal beings have to be reminded of that, lest we focus too much on day-to-day pleasures and hedonism. Now don't get me wrong, I love me a little bit of hedonism, but we do need to be reminded from time to time that, you know, we might die one day. We need to find what's actually fulfilling for us, not just chasing aesthetics and pleasures. I love me some vanity. I love beautiful sparkly things, obviously, but there is something to be said about being reminded from time to time that as much as we love those and find joy in those, they're temporary, as all things are wont to be. Vanitas in artwork was basically used to symbolize that life, youth, beauty, all of that eventually goes away, and Vanitas symbols were juxtaposed with beautiful things and with wealth. You could have symbols in a painting that represented Vanitas, or you could have the whole painting be an allegory for Vanitas, right? So the symbols were skulls and other wonderful dead things, flowers, fruits. In all states would have beautiful ripe fruit next to decaying, rotten, moldy fruit, flies sitting on very beautiful ripe fruit ready to be eaten or ready to be forgotten. You would have bubbles as an example of Vanitas as well, because bubbles like butterflies are something very short-lived yet very beautiful. Watches, hourglasses were a more on-the-nose symbol for life passing us by, and of course these are nothing without the contrast, so they would usually be contrasted, especially in still life. You would have this juxtaposition of beautiful things and dead things to remind us that all dead things were once beautiful, were once youthful, were once aesthetic, but everything rots at a certain point in our lives. Vanitas was really common in the early Middle Ages up to the Renaissance. The more we get to the middle of the Middle Ages, the more macabre it gets. With the increasing religious fervor that happened as the Middle Ages progressed, things in Vanitas paintings got more and more explicit and creepy and sinister. It went from kind reminder, you might die one day, to yeah, this will happen when you die, you filthy sinners, unless you repent and pray to Jesus. You started having themes of the dance macabre, of the ars morendi, of lots of memento mori. So all of those things that were explicitly meant to unnerve you, remind you that you are going to die, and you know, still alive with skull and flowers basically turned into skeletons dancing around with tubas or whatever instrument skeleton parties would play. That's why you see a lot of medieval creepy art, because medieval artists loved to give you nightmares. They loved nothing more than to paint something that would make you stay awake at night and repent. Because again, these were commissioned by the church, and it was very advantageous for people to be scared of death and to be scared of their mortality and how temporary everything is, because the more scared an uneducated peasant is, the more he goes to church to ensure the salvation of his soul. The more he goes to church, the higher a tithe he will pay, he will donate more, he will help the church stay in power. It is what it is. The church from time immemorial has been and has always been a bit of a business in that regard, and has been a big patron of the arts. And well, since we are on the topic of temporary, let's talk a bit about the temporary nature of vanity as something that we people do, and specifically how it's applied to us women and how it was used as a means to get ahead for so many centuries, also has been weaponized against us. We've really had a lot to deal with how we handle our looks and caring about our looks in particular. Basically, the fact that the Latin word for temporary, worthless, transient, empty, futile was the root for, you know, the word of physical related vanity in so many languages, and how mostly women are accused of being vain is telling. It shows this bigger trend in current Western society to see vanity as something superficial, a waste of time. This is because of those religious mores of not focusing so much on hedonistic pleasures and on beauty. However, being vain does not mean that you are not as complex of a human being as someone that doesn't wear makeup or that doesn't care about their look. You can make time for both. You can be a beautiful woman, a very high maintenance woman, and be someone complex or someone worthy of knowing, someone that is not superficial as we are so often deemed to be. And let's face it, for a very long time, the very thing that we are blamed for, aka vanity, aka high maintenance, was for many women a ticket to a better life. If you were beautiful, if you were upkept, if you looked good, you would have a better chance of securing a husband. And securing a husband was, for many women, their path to not dying of destitution or living as poor spinsters for the rest of their lives. Society has told us to value our looks so much for so many centuries, while at the same time saying that those looks should be completely natural and completely unaffected and we shouldn't pay attention to them. But God forbid if we don't, though, because if we don't, then our femininity and our love of ourselves is put into question. But if we do, again, our femininity and our love of ourselves is put into question. So damned if you do, damned if you don't. So just like the Vanitas paintings, we have to strike this delicate balance of not falling into being all focused on it and not falling in the other extreme of not focusing at all on it. We have to come to grips with the fact that society gives us mixed signals. Men are very rarely accused of being vain, and it's not required of them to be vain. And when they are either called feminine or they are called less of a man, and they're seen lesser than, simply because they would care as much of their looks, as much of something as superficial as their looks as women do. I mean, does anyone else remember the early 2000s when we invented the word metrosexual to mean a man that was well upkept and, you know, took showers daily? Did we all collectively forget that? Beauty was and still is a social currency. We have a thing called pretty privilege that can't even begin to be discussed in a calm manner without unpacking the layers of misogyny and transphobia and everything else that wraps it up like an onion. To this day, beauty is still seen as a female form of currency. We are valued based on how we look, based on how we present ourselves. We are marked by the way that we present our mortal coil to the world in a way that men are not. And it's this constant fight against time instead of embracing it. And I feel that there is a balanced way to both enjoy adorning ourselves and decorating ourselves and expressing ourselves without this inherent fear that people will ascribe a certain value to us based on our looks. In conclusion, vanity is a thing that we cannot escape from. Vanity is our struggle against the fact that we are all going to die, and that our appearance will change, and that everything is temporary. And that is valid both in art and in the way that we approach ourselves, our looks, and our self-expression. I don't think we will ever be able to escape it, and in that way, the Vanitas art themes are in all of us. In the mirror, in the clothes we wear, in the makeup we use, and in the way we look at our own selves and at beauty and at, you know, the frailty of life and said beauty and good looks. This has been it. This has been the final look. Thank you guys so much for listening to me rant about art history and then a bit about being a woman in current times. Please don't forget to check out Elle's video and her channel. They're both linked down below, as well as all of the products that I used today. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to have a wonderful morning, evening, second breakfast, third lunch, or whatever it is where you're from. Bye!